And I put it open source, of course, Apache license on GitHub. And after a few months, it was growing in popularity, more and more stars. And I joined AWS while developing Prowler. I was working for AWS for some time in different teams. The good thing of AWS is that you can do a lot of things there. It's like Legoland for a kid, right? And after that, I realized also that Prowler was growing even more in popularity. At some point, I was like feeling that I didn't have enough time, not even in 24 hours we have every day, to handle properly my project. Users, contributors, issues, pull requests. And I said, okay, I cannot handle everything. And at the end of the day, Prowler was a one-man army project for about 6 years. And it was like, or I bet for what I always wanted to do, or I forget about it. And I deprecate the software or whatever. And it was like, at the same time, also it has, I don't remember, probably 3,000 stars on GitHub or more. And VCs, when you are popular on GitHub, VCs are always knocking doors. And at some point, I opened the door for investment, and I decided to step up and build the company. And that is why I ended up having my company.
Hey there, hope you're all doing well. This is Griswold of FINOS. Before we get started, I just wanted to mention to you a little bit about our sponsors of OSFF. We could not do this conference. This conference is really expensive. It's really expensive to do it in New York City, and the other one in London as well. So without our sponsors, this would not be possible. The majority of our members actually attend our conferences for free because of these sponsors. Keep that in mind, but I want you to listen to one of our speakers that you're going to listen to next. But I also want you to just take a minute to either go to the website and check out our sponsors or visit them when you come to OSFF. The majority of them will have booths there. They'll be walking around. They'll have swag. But I want to mention them. Some of them actually have tracks, like the Confidential Computing Consortium. They have an entire track on security that they're going to be curating with us. FinOps Foundation, they will be there walking around. Kevin Anami and Steve Trask and JR Sorment will be there. Red Hat, great member, great leader, sponsor. We appreciate everything they do. Our contributor sponsors are GitLab, OpenSSF. They will have a half track on security as well. Splunk, Temporal, and vCluster. And then finally, our community sponsors are Capital One, Gradle, Interop.io, Juxt, Causley, the Linux Foundation Education side, Modern, OpenLogic by Perforce, Oracle, Sauce Labs, CO Security, Solo.io, Sonotype, SUSE, Synadia, and Tetrate. Again, please visit our sponsors at their booths. Please visit their websites. And if you have any questions about them or how to sponsor, please let us know. osff@finos.org. All right, with that, I'll let you get to the rest of the podcast. Thanks so much. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. This is Griswold of FINOS. Hope you're doing well. Today with me, I have Toni de la Fuente, who is the CEO and founder of Prowler. Toni, how are you today?
Very good, very good. Thanks for having me, Chris.
Yeah, it's great to finally meet you. Gab, who's our executive director, has talked about you a little bit, and I also know that you're actually involved with one of our projects as well. We'll get into that. So it's always nice to meet somebody who's actively involved within the community. But let's talk about you first. You have this company called Prowler, and you're the founder and CEO. So how'd you get to this point?
After probably more than 25 years as an open source enthusiast and cybersecurity at the same time. So I started a long ago with hacking and open source, well, the first days of Linux, and before that with BSD, with FreeBSD, also Solaris, then Open Solaris. And I discovered networks, discovered the internet, and worked for many different companies, from banks to telcos, and building open source on my own time, like a pet projects. I've done like Wi-Fi cybersecurity related open source projects. And long ago, I started working for clouds. right? I was working for another open source company and I discovered AWS. And while learning about AWS, I realized how cool the cloud can be, right? For automation. So what in the early days took 6 months from ordering a server to having the service running, let's say a DNS or email server or whatever, was at least 6 months. And with the cloud, it's like 5 minutes. So building in with automation means also hacking with automation, right? Means breaking stuff, also hardening stuff with automation. And I started writing my own scripts to not to have to repeat my job every day. And for me and my colleagues and everybody else in the community to say, okay, if you want to know what you have in the cloud, run these very simple commands. And that became back in 2016, Prowler. And I put it open source, of course, Apache license on GitHub. And after a few months, it was growing in popularity, more and more stars. And I joined AWS while developing Prowler. I was working for AWS for some time in different teams. In AWS, the good thing of AWS is that you can do a lot of things there. It's like Legoland for a kid, right? And after that, I realized also that Prowler was growing even more in popularity, users, contributors, issues, pull requests. And I said, okay, I cannot handle everything. And I decided to step up and build the company.
Nice.
It was about more than 2 years ago now.
That's cool. I used to teach entrepreneurship, and I recently had a student come back to me, and he was building this thing, and he was like, I just need to quit my job and work on this right now. And I said, God, no. While somebody else is paying your electric bill, you should be working on your own thing. So it sounds like that's what you did, and you were working in a place to where it really fostered. You could probably not double dip. I don't want to put it that way, but you could basically at AWS, you're able to like really hone in on your craft and hone in on the thing that you're passionate about. That's really cool. I'm going to send that piece right there to my old student. Just
The point is, at some point, I was like feeling that I didn't have enough time, not even in 24 hours we have every day, to handle properly my project. And at the end of the day, Prowler was like one-man army project for about 6 years.
Ouch.
And it was like, or I bet for what I always wanted to do, or I forget about it. And I deprecate the software or whatever. And it was like, at the same time, also it has, I don't remember, probably 3,000 stars on GitHub or more.
That's good.
And VCs, when you are popular on GitHub, VCs are always knocking doors. And at some point, I opened the door for investment. And that is why I ended up having my company.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's the commercialization of open source. I know you came from the floss area, so I know that it's always a dangerous thing to talk about, but the truth is money helps, and I'm sure that gave you the ability to make your project even better, I'm assuming.
Yeah, so the point of making money out of open source, it's a wide range of opportunities. One is, of course, raising money. You raise money, you develop open source, of course, in order to make more money, but that helps to pay bills, right? Then you figure out what is the best business model for the software that you are building. Back in the days was distribution, support, training, services. Now, pretty much everybody is doing SaaS services, right? SaaS platform, so you sell subscriptions. So that is what we are doing. So we sell subscriptions in different type of fashions. Right? One is you come to our SaaS platform, you pay for the service, and we secure your cloud. We help you secure your cloud. But it's also you can have a dedicated subscription or local instance for Prowler, because Prowler supports also disconnected clouds, let's say, and you can buy a Prowler subscription to have the company helping you on that effort.
Gotcha.
And we update your instance. We do everything for your subscription in your local environment or your local cloud, your VPC or whatever. So we do that as well.
I'm assuming more secure in that aspect as well.
Yeah, that is very common on governments, for example.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet. I bet.
Yeah, so that's the point, to try to find the best way to make money out of this beautiful thing that is open source.
So tell me, you're going to be speaking at OSFF in New York this fall, and your talk that you're doing with your colleague Pedro Martin is from CCC to automated cloud detections and remediations with Prowler and AI. Right. That was a mouthful, but I will tell you that every single talk has a mouthful on the title in order to entice people. Tell me what that's about.
So when I met with the FINOS guys, with some of your colleagues, and we discussed about the common cloud controls, we said, wow, this is something that we do, but with different name, right? So we write Prowler, we write controls or checks or policies. In some places, they call them policies, but we call checks. And then we map those checks with requirements. And not always those requirements are one-to-one with checks, because in some cases, the act or the regulation, they are very high level, and you have to land those requirements into the cloud, technical specifications in the cloud. Let's say the high level requirement says you have to have encryption address, but how do you land that into the cloud? It's okay. For AWS, for example, you have to go through all the storage services and make sure they have encryption enabled. For Azure or for GCP, exactly the same. Go through all the storage services or services that have a portion of information stored somewhere. So you have to map that and to say, okay, this check, this technical check, that is a very small program that pulls information from the cloud API and gives you a pass or a fail and additional information like severity, etc. How we can map that reality into the common cloud controls reality. That is what we have done with multiple governments, regulations, or even very common popular standards or compliance standards like PCI, HIPAA, even NIS2 here in Europe, or more than 30 we support. So in this talk, we want to talk about the implementation that we have done and how to take advantage of the technical implementation. It's like not only what the common cloud controls tells you have to do or is the best practice, but how you get the outcome of that directly with Prowler. We are going to show one of the pillars of the common cloud controls, that is going to be storage, but we want also the community to help us adding others like the AI network, like the IAM. There are many. But one of the most important is storage, and this is what we are going to show, how to create reports, how to create even your dashboards, all that stuff. So if you come to that talk, you are going to end up being able to straight away get results in less than 5 minutes, which is the good thing of Prowler, right? We want everybody to go through cloud security automation and remediation easy, because the cloud is complex enough to keep adding more complex functions.
No, that's great, and glad to see that it lines up too with the FINOS project. I was talking with another speaker yesterday, and we were talking about regulation, and she's going to be speaking about AI and DORA and everything. And something that she said that kind of stuck with me was the regulations are there. And because I asked her the question of, can regulators actually keep up with AI, open source, which the truth is we know that they can't right now. Something that she said was like, the regulations that are there, you sure as hell better pay attention to them and comply with them. And I see that that's the goal of CCC, why it was created in the first place. And then in order to not only be compliant with regulations that may still be coming down the line from regulators on cloud, but then be able to do it quickly in what you're talking about with Prowler and AI, I can definitely see the value from that. Definitely come to Toni and Pedro's talk, and it is on Wednesday the 22nd. So that's your talk. But I want to go back to, yeah, I told you it's choose your own adventure, but maybe it's choose my own adventure on this last part. I want to
Okay.
go back to the commercialization aspect of open source. But I want to talk to you as a maintainer of an open source project who lived through the genesis. And like you said, you got the genesis of your project that you did a thing, and then you built it up over, what do you say, 6 years, and it was pretty much one man band for a while. And then, money or no money, things start to expand. Like, as a maintainer that's going through that right now in a project, they're like, hey, this is a great idea. It should work for other people as well. Is there any advice that you would have for a new project maintainer that's within that first year or so? In other words, what would you have done differently knowing what you know now? And what advice would you give for new project maintainers?
The first piece of advice I will give is do something for you. Be your first customer. Because otherwise it's not, people come to me to say, okay, what should I do? I said, do something that helps you, first of all. And then even if it fails for others, it works for you. So first week, right? That's what I did. I did something for me because I needed and because I wanted to learn. So when I wrote, for example, all the checks for S3, I became a kind of expert of S3 security because I knew everything about S3 because I wrote all the code for those checks, right? And I allow people to do that. The second piece of advice will be write good documentation. So if your project, so make your software to be easy, very easy to work anywhere, or at least in the place it's meant to be, meant to run. And do good documentation. Tell everybody what you are doing. In my case, it worked very well to go to Black Hat Arsenal, to go to multiple different cybersecurity conferences, DEF CON, Cloud Villages, all that stuff, not only in the US, but also in Europe, and telling people, hey, look what I've done, see if it works. And the third last one, and most important probably, is take care of your community. Even if it's one person or if it's a million persons. So if they open a pull request, review the pull request. If they open an issue, respond the issue. Even for me, sometimes it took the whole night. Wake just to review a pull request or to review an issue or to fix a bug. Because something that we have in open source that nobody else has in the software industry is open source. If you have open source, you have feedback. And black boxes, companies pay money for feedback. And we have feedback for free. So what can be better for a good piece of software than listening to your users? And we get that for free. So for me, it was key to be on top of the community from first minute, trying to listen to them and challenging. I was challenging myself with them. I would like Prowler to do this. And I was like, I'm going to do that tonight. Things like that. So that worked for me. Of course, I have done some things different. Like I started with writing everything in Bash and I should have started writing everything in Python. But this is another piece of advice. Don't worry about the programming language. Worry about solving a problem. If the problem that you solve is an important problem for others, man, no matter whatever the language you use, because you always have time to rewrite it. Actually, we did it. When I had money to hire people, we rewrote everything in Python. And of course, now it's a better piece of software, but it wasn't that important at the beginning.
That's interesting. That's definitely going on a short clip right there. And it's really good advice too, because when I was doing my MBA 1,000 years ago, there was something that we kept getting into. Like the term of the year was analysis paralysis, and it transfers across everything that people do to just do it. And Nike's not so wrong with that. That it But solving a problem doesn't matter how you get to that answer, as long as you get to the answer is key. And then, yeah, you're right. If you solve a problem for one, then people will help you figure out how to solve it for many, or do it a different way too. I really like that as well. I I learned a lot during these podcasts, actually.
Okay, thank you.
And I would also say that thinking about your points too before, especially on the documentation, like I'm a marketer and I have been forever, and I've worked for technology companies and have been on the business side of technology. And so marketing is a bad term for developers usually. Agree or disagree, but I think when it comes to some of those things like documentation, customer service, like those are marketing pieces that in a normal product world would be treated as by a project or a product marketer, not just a product manager. And I look at that and go, yeah, that documentation is where you can get other people involved and not just technical people, but non-technical people as well to really say that, hey, if you didn't have that documentation, I'm imagining that it would be a harder sell for people to actually try out and figure out how to use Prowler in the first place.
Exactly. Otherwise, don't make anything public if you don't write a proper README
Right.
list or
Right.
install txt. You remember back in the days they
Oh, I
install
do.
txt?
I do. Yes. Yeah, I've been nerding out with Tandy computers, even though I'm in marketing and say that I'm not technical. I've been playing with them for my entire life. Okay, so from CCC to automated cloud detections and remediations with Prowler and AI, Pedro Martin and Toni de la Fuente on Wednesday, October 22nd at OSFF. I'm excited to actually meet you in person
Me too.
and looking forward to it and looking forward to your talk. And I think too, from some of the things that you've said, that I hope that more people attend your talk because you've, again, as a founder, as a maintainer, as somebody who's been in the industry on the technology side and the finance side, it sounds like you have a lot to give here. So definitely check out Tony's talk. Any final words before we head out?
Now, looking forward to see you and the whole team in New York in October. I'm really excited to be there with Pedro. Pedro has a lot of experience building this CCC, despite he's a very young engineer, but has been building this from scratch. I'm very excited to show you all how to get the real things from something cool that is Common Cloud Controls.
Awesome. Cool. All right. With that, I'm just going to go ahead and say good day, good night, wherever you are, and thank you very much.
Thanks for having me. Bye.